everything was working. So right here, my goal is that by the end of this webinar, you will have a clear idea of the gaps that you feel you need to feel confident to launch your business full time. That's what we're shooting for by the end of this. Whether you're live or watching the replay, that's what I'm going for. But before we get started, I just ask that you reduce any distractions around you. Make sure you stay till the end. This is going to be interactive and fun, hopefully. So if you're here, like I said, get that chat window open, and can't wait to see, just some of the feedback that you guys have. We're going to get through this. There's a lot of information. We're going to go through it quick, and there is going to be a Q&A at the end. And then I'll tell you where you can get more and any special offers for people who are live. Okay. So we have to begin with this question. Why not just go full time with your business now? Right? Like, if we ask that question, then here come all the objections, right? Money is normally a big one. Well, I just don't have enough money saved up yet, or I need money for the business, or something about money. The next one is figuring out your strategy for the business. It's always interesting to hear people talk about their ideas for the business, but then when it actually comes time to, put a business plan down, they don't really have all the details figured out. And then the other one is just a fear of failure. Like, launching a business and failing is something that people get really scared about. What will people think of me? What will my family think of me? What will my spouse, if you're married, think of me? All of these things. We have reasons that we are scared of it. But outside of all that, there is one thing that I find to be the most common fear, and that is the fear of the unknown. And a lot of times that unknown comes in the form of just what we do know. We know consistent paychecks. We know what it's like to get paid every month or every 2 weeks and have that security blanket coming in. The fear of not knowing, okay, once I launch, like, what do I do next, and figuring all that out. I get it. It's a scary thing, okay? So we are going to ask ourselves some questions to make sure that we reduce all of these fears, okay? So put it in the chat. This is a question. What percentage of people are interested in starting a business? Leave me a comment right now. Let me know what you think. And any guesses coming in? Okay. More than half. So this is from a poll from America, but you're seeing this in a lot of other developed nations too. More than half of Americans are trying to make money on the side. So the reason for this isn't just because people are interested in entrepreneurship. There is some validity to that. The other side of it is the fact that we have had dramatic inflation happen in most developed nations across the world, really, really bad in the past 4 years specifically. And because of that, wages have not kept up with it. And people are starting to think, man, I really need to get a side hustle just to be able to maintain my standard of living. So out of that, nearly 19%, 1 in 5 adults, are in the process of founding a business. So not only are people thinking about it, people are actually doing it. The most in almost 25 years, people are starting new businesses. So this is not anything new. So just so you know that I'm not just some guy telling you something I haven't walked through. This picture is my last day at a corporate job. Hopefully forever, if things continue to go well, but at least for the foreseeable future. That was my last day right there up in a very nice Salesforce tower. And in 2 years since I've done it, I get the fear of the unknown. In the 2 years since I've done it, I have done a TED Talk, met some really incredible people who own their own businesses and are doing very successfully, and been able to build a life around my business instead of a business around my life. And that's ultimately the reason that I did, because entrepreneurship is hard. So if we're going to start a business, we need to make sure that we're building it around the life that we want to have, instead of just inviting in, all the same problems that our 9-to-5 job was probably giving us in the first place. Now, look, I am not sitting here telling you that because you become an entrepreneur and start your own business, you're going to work less than you did at your 9-to-5. If anything, you might work more, okay? But for the people that decide to do it, it's totally worth it for a lot of reasons. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But I wanted to let you know that, hey, guess what? It's all right. I've been here. I've done it. we're on the same page. All right. So let's start going through the 9 questions you need to answer before you start your business full time. And if you want to pull up the chat, go ahead and feel free to, throw in your answers to any of these. And I'm going to talk about this as well. Okay. Question number 1, why do you want to start a business? I find that anytime we are going through and we're talking about something that we want to do in our life, it's really important that we ask why. The principles of lifestyle design come down to 3 questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? And then how are you going to get it? So if we're going to be designing our life around this business that we're going to have, it's important that we understand the why behind it. Because when we understand our motivation for doing something like this, it can really change the way that we go about doing something. And sometimes whether or not we should even do it at all. If you don't have a strong why, you should probably not start a business. There needs to be something stronger than, well, I just want to make some money and work less. That's good, but it's not always going to work out that way. I highly recommend having something a little bit stronger than that. So for me, the reason that I wanted to start a business was because I had been making great money in corporate, but I knew that because of what I call my why statement, which would be the equivalent to like a vision or a mission statement, I knew that because of that, I was like, okay, I want to serve people. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with selling software, but it wasn't really like serving anybody. I was helping out like some big time enterprises. That was fine. But I really wanted to have an impact on people. And I had been doing coaching like this for years on the side. And that was just so much more fulfilling for me. And I didn't really need the money. So it was just one of those things where it was like, it's time to do something a little different. And that's what my was. I wanted to enable myself to structure my personal life a little differently. But then I also wanted to be able to impact people directly and through what they were doing with their life. So why do you want to start a business? Okay. So then, how does the business make money? So this is a great one. Oops, sorry about that. Here we go. So how does the business make money is one that's also really important because this sounds like a super obvious question. It's like, well, obviously I need to make money, Stephen. I think I would have thought about that. But there's 5 different methods or 5 different modes, I should say, to make money. And it follows an acronym called PAIDS. So you have product, ads, information, deals, and services. A lot of people understand the fact that maybe there's a product to sell, maybe there's a service that they're going to be starting up, maybe they're interacting, but they don't really think through the full monetization plan. And if they do, they only think about maybe one way to make money, when in fact, there's a lot of ways to make money. So that's something that's really important, is seeing like, okay, well, I might start off with a service, but then I'm going to transition into a product based after I get my service down. So a great example of that would be like me with coaching. What I did is I started off with a service to where I was doing one-on-one coaching. And then what I did is I took the most common issues that I was constantly talking about and turned that into a course. And then I sold that course, which was a product. So I created new ways to make money doing the exact same thing. And there's, ups and downs to each, different mode like that. But really stopping and thinking about like, how does my business make money? You might have your one primary revenue maker at first, but are there other things you can be doing along the way? I was working with somebody just recently, and he's in my mastermind, and he does projects that are AI based for consumer brands. So anything that he does is a really big project, which is great because when he gets one, he makes a lot of money. The problem though is that is a very cash and time intensive process. He doesn't have any other ways to make money in between. So what we talked about doing was coming up with some, consulting slots that he could do, since it's a very hot topic, his expertise is needed, to where he could make some quick money along the way that was real easy, that was hot in demand, and he could use to kind of float himself while he was working on these super big projects and getting payouts. So really having a strong understanding of how your business is going to make money is going to make you feel a lot better and a lot more confident. And if you are somebody who's selling like a really high ticket item, is there a way that you could do something that doesn't eat up a lot of time in the beginning to get you a couple quick wins that can sustain you while you're working to those big ones? So just something to think about. How does the business make money? All right, next. Question 3, who is the avatar? And if you're not familiar with this, it's kind of a marketing term. If you're a geek like I am, then choose your avatar, right? But your avatar is basically just who is your target customer. And the easiest thing to do, probably the most common mistake that people make when they're starting off, is they want to help everybody. This was a huge struggle for me. I have the lifestyle design strategy. It can literally apply to anyone and everyone. Anybody can use this thing. It's just the fundamentals of strategy. When I started, that's kind of who I was marketing to, everyone, because I didn't want to limit my earning potential by niching down too far. Well, this is one of those very counterintuitive things to where when you say it out loud like that, it makes sense. But in the real world, it actually doesn't work. And the reason for that is just because everybody's selling something. We're the most advertised to generation in all of mankind. The average human sees anywhere from 3 to 10,000 ads every day or interacts with one. So there are so many different things that are vying for our attention right now that it is really hard to break through all that noise. So if you want to serve everyone, you will reach no one. And that's why you have to really define who your avatar is, especially in the beginning, your target customer. So for me, I had to go from wanting to help everyone to really niching down and focusing on business leaders and salespeople, because that's what I know. That's who I am. And I understand their struggles better than I understand anybody else's. So that's what I did. And guess what? When I did that, I started getting people to notice me, because then my content and the different things that I would talk about were just that much more specific. I wasn't just talking about, the system and money and life and time in the context of, well, everybody needs help with that. I was talking about it with the specific issues that business leaders and salespeople have. And that really was striking a chord. They're like, oh, he's speaking to me. He knows exactly what I'm going through. And that's how you really start to get a leg up on these things. So who is your avatar? Who is your target customer? These are really good things that we want to make sure that we have a strong understanding of. Okay. Are they blue people with lots of hair? Are they people with no hair and blue arrows on their head? Oh man, if you're not a geek, I don't know how much you're enjoying that one, but sorry. All right. How much money do you need to earn after taxes? This one is one of those that it shocks me how many people haven't done this calculation. I'll never forget I was doing some coaching with someone who was in marketing. They wanted to start their own marketing business. So they weren't even making a huge jump. It wasn't like they were going from marketing to I want to start a pillow making company or anything. Like they were staying within their skill sets. So they thought they were like, I don't know when I want to, when I'm going to be able to start though. And I said, okay, well, what's your budget look like? Like how much money do you guys have coming in? How much money do you have going out every month? What's the burn rate? And she didn't know. She was like, well, I think my husband handles more of that. I was like, okay, have you talked to him about this? And she's like, well, yeah, I've brought it up with him. I said, all right, so how much money do you need to earn after taxes, not before taxes? A lot of people make that miscalculation. They think, oh yeah, I'm starting my business. I need to earn $100,000 to break even. No. The business needs to, but then the business will have expenses it has to pay for. The business has taxes it has to pay for, yada, yada, yada. So make sure that you calculate what it is after taxes. What is your take-home pay? So how much money do you need to earn? The crazy thing was in this particular position, this woman was working like 12-hour days. She was burnt out. She didn't like her job anymore. She wanted to start her own thing. And when she went back and talked to her husband and found out exactly how much she needed, what they realized is that she only needed to earn like $1,500 a month to be able to have them break even. She was like, I could probably get that, going within a week or something. So it was one of those, it was just incredibly eye-opening. She thought it was so far away for her to be able to replace her income. And sure, it was going to be that far away to replace her income. But for them to just break even from an expenses standpoint, she only needed to earn $1,500 a month. And she was like, I can absolutely do that. And that gave her the freedom to know that she could actually remove the excuse of, well, I don't have the money, we can't afford it, almost immediately, which accelerated her timeline and just made it feel that much more real. So you need to understand how much money you need to earn after taxes. That way you can make it a business revenue goal and it gives you something to start working towards. Okay. Moving on to question 5. When do you plan to quit? There's a reason that you need to do question 4 before you do question 5, because a lot of people are terrified of this question. And the reason for that is because they don't know. They don't know a lot of the questions that we've already asked before, but they definitely don't know the answer to question 4. They haven't bothered to calculate it. So because of that, when I talk to somebody and I say, when do you plan to quit? Yeah, well, I mean, maybe the beginning of next year, or, you get this range of time. I was talking to a woman just recently. She's getting ready to quit her job. She has already started on her side hustle. It's doing the same thing that she was doing in the corporate world. Just, she's doing it, on her as a 1099, consultant, whatever. And we were talking about it. And I said, well, when do you plan to quit? I mean, she was already in the process. She already had one paying client. She had a couple more coming. And it was like, when do you plan to quit? She was really terrified to put a date down. And she was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know when I plan on quitting. And I just said, I said, what's holding you back? Part of it was money. Well, I don't know how much I need to replace. Okay. We looked roughly at what her expenses were. When we figured out what that was, she was like, well, I mean, technically, I think I have the clients already. It takes a little while for the billings to come through, but once that's done, I think I've actually got it. And then when she made that realization, it just made everything seem so much more real. And then we just put their feet to the fire and I just said, okay, December 31st, for sure, you will have quit. Sound good? And we shook on it virtually. So when you start answering all these questions, you can put a deadline down for yourself, because the difference between a wish and a goal is usually just time. Most people will say things like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to run a marathon. I want to start my own business and go full time with it. But those are not goals, because it's missing one key element of a goal, which is the fact that it needs to be time bound. There has to be a deadline. So I want to, and this is the thing, the deadline that you set for it makes a massive difference. Because think about it in the context of this. If you said, I want to lose 25 pounds. Okay. All right. By when? When do you want to lose 25 pounds? Within a month. Any nutritionist, personal fitness trainer is going to laugh at you and say, yeah, there's not really a healthy way to do that. Like you could do a whole bunch of crazy stuff like wrestlers and fighters do and lose tons of water weight and like starve yourself and blah, blah, blah to like get it down. But it's not like a good sustainable way to do it. You cannot lose 25 pounds in a month, like in a healthy kind of way. But if you say I want to lose 25 pounds in 6 months, well, that changes the plan completely and it is more sustainable. So it's like the goal can be this, or what you want to accomplish can be the same, but the time frame can change the entire plan. So if you want to quit in 30 days versus if you want to quit in 6 months, that will totally change the entire dynamic of what you need to do in order to get those things done. So this is something that's incredibly important. Give yourself, I don't care if it's 2 years from now, that's fine, make it 2 years. But the point is, the second, and this is why people hate, making deadlines, is the second that you do that, you create a success failure dichotomy. Because if I say, well, I want to start a business someday, the only day that's not a day is someday. And that means that as long as I do it before I die, I'm not technically a failure. And that's why people are scared to put deadlines down, because now they're at risk of failure. But it also is exactly what we need to help us drive urgency. Okay. Question 6. I told you, We're cooking. We're moving along here. Do you have a financial foundation? The way that I define financial foundation is 6 to 12 months expenses saved. Some people out there like to talk about 3 to 6 months. I'm okay with the 6. I don't like the 3. The reason I don't like that is because right now, for instance, we are in tough economic times. And if you are somebody, and I know many people who have lost their jobs, some people have been out of jobs for 2, 3, 4 months. One person I know that's been out of a job is just got hired again, but it's still taking a little while to get onboarded, get that first paycheck, yada, yada. So 3 months doesn't really get you very far when economic times are tough. But the average recession lasts 11 months. So that means if you're at least saving up 6 to 12 months, you could probably stretch that, if you start cutting back, if, you have zero income and stuff. So this is what I like to tell people. Make sure that while you are working, you have your financial foundation funded, at least those 6 months. Because if the worst were to happen, the plan isn't shaken out like you thought it was, you're not bringing in the money that you needed, you have this to give you a blanket of security and give yourself time to go and figure it out. Because that's what entrepreneurship is. It's just constantly having to figure it out. The second you figure out one thing, you got 2 other things you got to figure out. And you have to fall in love with that process. And most entrepreneurs tend to, because that's what draws them to it in the first place. The problem is that a lot of people run out of money just before they reach, the finish line, so to speak, of a point when they're monetizing enough to be able to pay off their bills. So if you go ahead and you start working now to make sure that you have your financial foundation already set and ready to go, then you're good. Okay, I want to pause here just real quick, just see how we're doing. If you guys don't mind, get in the chat. Tell me what you think so far about the questions. We've got 3 more to go. And then, we're going to stop, take some Q&A. But the note that I want to really drive here is that hopefully you see by asking yourself these tough questions and forcing yourself to answer them, what we're really doing is we are creating a sense for ourselves that we need to have certain things baked out before we ever launch. I want you to have the same kind of security I did when I left, because when I forced myself to answer these questions, what I realized is that, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, what we're really doing by asking these questions is just breaking everything down into small steps. That's all that we're trying to do. When we look, anytime we're setting big goals for ourselves or trying to do something audacious and brave, like starting a business or in going full time with it, especially, the problem we can make is that of a mountain climber who's just constantly looking at the peak of the mountain. A mountain climber does not just go up the mountain looking at the peak the entire time. They will trip all over the place if they do that, and they'll feel like they're not getting anywhere. But a lot of times that's what ends up happening to us. So what's better is to just occasionally look up, check the peak, make sure you're heading in the right direction, but then just focus on the next 5 steps. That's it. If you focus on the next 5 steps, it's like, okay, all right, I did that. I got a little further. What's my next 5? And we just want to stack small wins consistently. That's really what we're trying to do. Just stack small wins consistently. If you can do that on a regular basis, you're going to turn around in 6 months and be like, wow, I have come so far. Okay? All right. Let's dive in to the last of these questions. So, make that a little smaller for you. Question number 7. Do you have an existing personal brand around this new venture, or is it new? So, example, you're a web designer who's now starting a web designing company. The reason that this is an important question to ask is it can change the dynamic of how you start. So, in my situation, the answer to this was no. I did not have an existing personal brand around coaching. I was doing coaching on the side, but my 9-to-5 jobs that I had while I was doing that for 5 years would not allow me to have a side hustle unless I disclose them to the company. And screw that. I'm not telling them because number one, it's not their business. Number two, it's one of those things that in the positions I was in, I knew that the second that anything slipped, they would start pointing the finger and saying, oh, yeah, well, you're spending too much time doing that thing, when I knew it would have no relevancy on it. So I didn't bother telling anybody about it. Everything I did was just word of mouth. But when I quit and I went full time, unfortunately, I had to build a brand. And that's one of the reasons I took a year off, to do nothing but learn new skills and build a brand around this and sell absolutely nothing, because I knew that I had to build trust, that I knew what I was talking about, because I'd been doing this for so long, but I'd never been able to tell people about it. So if you can answer yes to this, you do have a personal brand around it. Yeah, I was a CFO at a company and now I'm a fractional CFO. Yes, I was a director of marketing and now I have a marketing agency. Yes, I was, a bricklayer and now I'm, building houses kind of thing. Whatever the case may be, right? If you have some type of personal brand around it, that's awesome. It is going to give you a leg up. And when you start advertising, creating content, whatever, you can build trust a lot faster because you already have a ton of experience in that area. But if you are somebody who is doing something completely new, if you are changing industries, you are going from, web design to dog grooming, you are going to have to build up certain kinds of trust within your personal brand with the people you are trying to serve, because I'm not letting you cut my dog. If you're like, yeah, this is, I just love dogs and I love hairstyles, but I've never actually groomed a dog before, so your dog is going to be the first one I've ever done. Might just, come back to you in a little bit, after you've, tried your shears on somebody else before. You see what I mean? So this is why it's important for us to answer this question, because that lets us know how much work we need to do around this for when we launch. All right. Question 8. What can you do today to start building your business and brand? This is something that I think people, going back to the mountain climbing analogy, I think people get stuck looking at the peak, because this again feels really obvious. If you have a 9-to-5 and if you know how your business is going to monetize and you've got a decent strategy and you know your avatar and you figured out the money and all this other stuff, this just kind of feels obvious, right? Like, okay, yeah, what can I start doing now? In my experience, it's not. A lot of people really, they might do a couple little things. Like normally the things I find that people do in this kind of scenario is they look at this and they go, okay, this is what they do. I'll tell you the most common things right now, because I know exactly what they are now that I'm thinking about it. They get a logo. They get maybe some brand colors, maybe some new headshots, something like that. Everything that they're working on is kind of these visual aspects of the company. And, maybe they even do the mission statement or whatever the case is. What I don't see happening as much when it comes to things like this is the beginning of promoting it, the beginning of building out the infrastructure, going in and hiring consultants to, get certain things ready for the website, whatever the case may be. I don't see a lot of the technical stuff that actually takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money happening. What I see is the fancy visual things. Oh, well, yeah, I got some headshots for when I launch. I, created a company logo and name, and, it's those kind of little low hanging fruit. And I think that's a huge mistake, because there are so many things you can be doing to move the needle. The hardest dollar to make when you start a business is your first dollar. The best feeling, though, in my opinion, is when you make that second dollar, because you can book that first dollar and it can feel almost like an accident. It feels great. But when you have repeated success and you get that second and third dollar coming in, it's like, oh, wow, I kind of know what I'm doing. Okay, people kind of want what I have. And to me, that if you're working a 9-to-5, that's one of the best strategies. Is even if it's an MVP, a minimal viable product, if it's the most bare level of whatever service, product, deal, whatever that you're going to offer, if you can just get it out there and test it and actually have some people pay for it, even if it's heavily discounted. I did this with beta testers when I came out with every single one of my course. I went out, I said, this is what it is. If anybody's interested, I need beta testers. So I was upfront about what it was, and I knocked it down about 80%. And I had people come in and pay for it. And it was still hundreds of dollars for the product, but people paid for it. They took a chance on that. And that gave me so much confidence because I was like, man, these people who have never met me before, in person, they just know me from the internet, they saw what I'm trying to do, and they had enough confidence to still, even though it's heavily discounted, to spend a couple $100s on this product that I have and then give me feedback on it. And then the feedback was incredibly helpful because it was positive, but then they also had a lot of things that I could improve. And that made me just have next level confidence knowing somebody paid for my product, they liked it, and they gave me areas where I can make it better before I start charging full price for it. So I think that's a really powerful thing that we need to make sure that we pay attention to. All right. Last question. Hope you're excited. All right. Hit me up in the comments if this has been good. We're going to get to the Q&A in here in just a second. So here is the last question. Is there money available to invest in products and services to accelerate your timeline? I have this saying that I've kind of become known for. I didn't even realize I was saying it that much, but I've had two people that have followed me for a while who have said, I like your new motto. And I'm like, what motto? I didn't know this was it. But now we're literally talking about merch because now I really like it. And that is 7% is for suckers. And what that basically means is that I talk about contrarian investing a lot. And when we talk about investing, normally people think of kind of what I call the big three right now. You think about stocks, you think about real estate, and you might think about crypto, something like that. Those are normally where people's head go when we talk about investing. Well, in the market, earning 7 and 9% on a year-over-year basis is pretty standard. It's pretty average. But the thing is, when you're trying to build wealth, 7% sucks. That's not very good. You're not going to really get, you'll beat, inflation a little bit, but you're not going to really be getting ahead if we're earning 7%. And especially if we're talking about small amounts of money. So perfect example, let's say you have $1,000, okay? You have $1,000 to invest. If you put that into a market and you're earning 7% on it, let's get a little crazy. Let's say you earn 20%. If you earn 20%, which is really good in the market on that $1,000, guess what? That means you made $200. Oh, but wait, you didn't actually make $200 because then you're going to have capital gains on that $200. So that's going to actually bring it down to like $130 or something like that, depending on your tax bracket. So you spent all that, got really above average returns, like 3x what could be expected, and you only made $130 on your $1,000 investment. Okay, not knocking it, but that's not going to change your life. But what if you took that $1,000 and you invested that in this business that you want to start up? And what you did is you spent that on somebody to help you make sure your website converts. What if you spent that on coaching to learn a skill that you really need to have? What if you spent that money on, I'm going to use LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. What if you spent that money learning how to do social selling on something like LinkedIn? Well, if you have a product that costs, let's say $500, well, if you spend $1,000 on coaching for LinkedIn and how to sell, well, you just need to sell 2 deals and then you've made 100% back on your money, right? So that's one of the things that I like to get people to think about is if there's money that you're investing in other areas, sometimes the best return that you can have is investing in the infrastructure, investing in, making sure your product is better, investing in marketing, whatever the case may be. Now, obviously, you can invest in ways that don't really pay off. I paid a copywriter one time to make me some emails, and he did a great job, actually. The problem was I ended up shifting what I was doing with the business, and now they weren't relevant anymore. So it was a waste of $500. Not his fault. Like I said, he did a good job. The business just pivoted. So yes, that's always, anytime we invest, that's going to be a risk, and it's something that we need to pay attention to. But you will get such better returns if you have money to accelerate your timeline with products and services that people can come in. You don't have to do everything yourself. And this is one of the great things you can do when you have money coming in. And then guess what? if you have money coming in, and let's say you've started your side hustle, and let's say you're making a couple bucks with that, well, just take all that money that you're earning from the side hustle, and instead of going out and spending it on something, reinvest that back into the business. Get better software, get a better website, get a better product. Whatever the case is, do that, and it's going to help you grow that much faster and get you to the point where you can quit your 9 to 5 a lot quicker than you ever imagined. Okay? So that is the last question that I think you should ask yourself. Okay. And I want to leave with this final note here. There's the Stoic principle about it is better to be a warrior than a gardener in a war. And basically what I'm trying to say is don't wait for the battle to start preparing. So the whole point of this is basically just saying that, if you are a warrior in a garden, okay, the warrior is not necessarily just sitting there working on his plants, doing everything like that. He's sharpening his swords. He's working on his skills. He's keeping his body in shape. There are things that he is doing, even though he is not in battle, to prepare for the day that comes. Take that exact same mentality with what you're doing right now. Okay. You do not need to be in this situation to where it's an all or nothing. Okay, I'm going to quit this day and then I'm just going to rush and try to get all of these things done because I'll have more time. Don't do that to yourself. You don't need to. Go and take a little bit of time on your weekend. Maybe you dedicate Wednesday night. Wednesday night is my night that I am going to work on my side hustle. I'm not going to watch TV. My spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, they know, hey, don't bug me from the hours of 6 to 9. We'll get dinner with them and then I got to go work on stuff. Just dedicate some time to improving your craft, getting closer to monetization with the business, and then eventually being able to take that leap. So now the only question that I have is, what was the most useful thing that you learned today? So this is the first time that I've talked about this, particular topic. So I would just love to hear, punch it in the chat if you don't mind. Let me know the things that were, if there was an aha moment or anything that really jumped out at you. And that will help me just continue to make these things better. I want to do more of these, and I want to make sure that I'm hitting on the pain points that are important to you. Out of all these questions, I mean, every single one of these questions, I could do a webinar on almost every single one of them. we could go through, once you've answered, whatever it was to them, like we could go through and spend a whole 30, 45 minutes on those in and of itself. So that's, the big thing that I wanted to focus on right there. So yeah, that's what I had for today. And, if you want more information about what I'm doing, if you're curious about some masterminds, this is my website. You can go to coursonsolutions.com. And I have masterminds where I work with people. Right now, we have 2 of the 3 levels of mastermind that are unlocked. The first one is to design your cash flow. So that's helping you with budgeting, getting your money right, all that. And then we have design your lifestyle. And that is for business leaders, salespeople, and entrepreneurs, or people who want to be entrepreneurs. And that's what that one is about. So if you're interested in any of those, you can shoot me an email. You can contact me on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. And I'm happy to give you some more information about those. But I do want to let you know that right here, I have free resources available because I want to help people no matter where they are in, along this journey. So in these free resources, you can check out my podcast. I put out new episodes every single week. I have a YouTube channel to where the podcast is on that, but then I also do dedicated YouTube videos around certain topics there. And then I write articles. I love writing. So you can go on there and read a lot of different stuff there. My goal is just that whether you are, officially a part of a mastermind, or if you're just somebody who, wants to design their life and unlock their potential with lifestyle design, I just want to make sure that no matter what, I am putting out things that are going to benefit you and help you all along the journey. That's what my brand is about. I'm here to serve people in the best ways that I know how. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Now we will get to the portion and, I can't skip this. I would love to know if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat now. And if you haven't figured it out by now, between all the memes and the different things like that, I'm a little bit of a geek. So I do love, you can't see anything right now. It's very, very dark in the back. But yeah, it's always fun to be able to, kind of share a little bit of personality through the memes in my presentations. Okay. So I had a question come in. Yeah, that's a good one. So, the question is, how do you go about building your business strategy when it's just an idea? So really great question. What you are doing is you want to build a strategy, and strategy has 4 primary components: destination, starting point, journey, and then checkpoints. So you always want to start, and by the way, that's in order. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is people actually switch the two. They begin with their starting point and then their destination. You don't want to do that, because anytime you begin with where you are, you put limiting beliefs on what you think is possible. So we always want to start with the end in mind. So whenever you're trying to get started and build a plan, start with the end in mind. And when I say that, I like to think 3 years out. So in this situation, I would say, think 3 years out. Where do you want this business to be in 3 years? And get very specific with it. It needs to be quantitative. So if in 3 years you want this business to be making $250,000 a year, okay, great. Now that's where you want it to be in 3 years. Now at the end of year 1, where do you want it to go? Now it doesn't necessarily need to be equal. A lot of times there's a bell curve starting these things off. So let's say for the first year, you just want to earn $75,000. Great. Now that you've done that, let's work it back even further. All right, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in 3? Where do you want to be in 1 month? Where do you want to be next week? Once you've done that, you can get to your starting point. Okay, where am I right now? All right, well, I haven't started. I haven't even earned my first dollar. Okay, great. You're at 0. So now we know where you want to go. We understand where you are. Then we look at the journey. And then that's going back to this is where I want to be in a month. And we start working our way back up to those 3-year goals. Really, I just say go to the first 12. And then the last point is in checkpoints. So if you know you want to have $75,000 as you earn in that first year, an easy way to do that, for that kind of a metric would just be saying, hey, we're going to celebrate every single time we make another $7,500, gets us an additional 10% to the goal. So that's a really easy, just simple way to put strategy into your brain. Start with where you want to be, and then work it all the way down to where you are, and then figure out the gaps along the way. And the one thing I can promise you is this: your plan is going to change. Okay, you're one of the key things that you have to understand as an entrepreneur is that you have to be ready to pivot and make changes when necessary. I had a business model 12 months ago. It doesn't look anything like the business model I ended up launching, and that's because I continue to learn from people who were further ahead of me. I continue to find new things that my students wanted. I continue to learn. There was just a lot of things I continue to learn. So then by the time it came to launching, what I thought I was going to launch this business as, it was like 80% different than what I had originally started with. And that was all for the better. So be a constant student, always be learning, be open to criticism. You can do it. All right, let's see. Okay, last question here. This is a good one. The question is, what do you do when you aren't making enough money right now to invest in the company, and it's hard? It was a longer email that they sent. I forgot to read this one. So basically what the question is saying is, if they're not earning enough money right now to invest into the business, then what are other ways that they can accelerate getting to the point where they quit? This person that's writing this really hates their job. I know that out of context. So they just want to quit as quickly as possible. But what I would say is this: you have time. I say that as somebody who is a father, a husband, a son, son-in-law, involved in my community and in my church. Like, I get it. Life is busy and everybody's swamped. Okay. But the reality is you always have time, but you might have to cut some things out. And if you feel you don't have time and you don't have money to pay anybody to do these things for you, then you have to go the route of cutting things out of your life. And you have to say, what are things that I'm doing? And they may be things you enjoy, but what are things that I'm doing that at least for this season of time, I have to step back from so I can start dedicating time and energy and potentially even money I was spending on those things to accelerate this process. You have to do it. If entrepreneurship is something that's really important to you, starting that business is something that's really important to you, then you have to get going with it now. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to quit today, but you have to get started on it today. Because if not, you're going to continue to put it off. And let me tell you something, more dreams have died before they ever even got started being worked on. And I just hate seeing that for people who have a passion, who have a drive, not just for starting a business, but really for anything. But in the context of this, don't let this be one of those situations. You get, as my son likes to call Earth, he calls it the space rock, right? So you get one go on this space rock. All right, let's make it worth living. Let's do this adventure together. So that's what I would say to you, is that if there aren't resources right now to accelerate that timeline, then you have to cut something out that you are doing, and you have to be able to dedicate that time. Like I said, going back to that example, carve out Wednesday night, carve out 4 hours on a Saturday every single week, and dedicate that block to building your business. Wherever you are, doesn't matter if you've got a side hustle that's earning $5,000 a month, doesn't matter if you are at zero and you haven't done anything. Just make the commitment to yourself that you're going to block time off and that you're going to spend it learning new skills. You're going to spend it going out trying to get new clients. You're going to spend it trying to network with people who may be able to partner with you. And oh, by the way, and here's another answer. You may not have money but to pay somebody, but don't forget to barter. One thing that I did really early on when I was working with some people is I actually ended up bartering with them because I had skills that were useful. And I said, hey, you know what? I would normally charge something like this for that. You seem to need it. I need what you have. What if we just swap? You want to know what's great about bartering? There's no taxes involved. So even if it's not exactly a perfect trade of value, right? Normally people are really happy to do it because the government doesn't get involved and it's not a taxable event. So that is a really great way to get people to give you, products and services that will help them if you have something of value that you can offer them in return. And then you guys just do it for each other free. So those would be the things that I would recommend that you can do to really help you accelerate escaping the 9-to-5 and then getting to a point to go and taking your business full time. All right. Well, this has been a ton of fun. I can't wait to do this again. Leave some comments. Please, if you're watching the replay, let me know the parts that were the most beneficial. I would love to do another one of these in the future if people really enjoyed it. And I will be doing this on other topics as well. If you want to stay informed of some of the other events that I end up doing, I will be doing in-person events coming up here in 2025. I'm going to be doing a lot more digital events like this as well. So if this is something that you're really interested in, you want to stay up with, go to my website, courseandsolutions.com, put your email in the inbox. I only send out like an email a week. Promise you, you're not going to get like overly spam too bad. Okay. And that will just keep you informed of all the different things that I'm doing, and would love to see you at some of the other events.